and honey, brighter than the sun, softer than a silk pillow. You're my only one, my darling, my dear, my angel, my hope, my heart, my time. Please don't be a stranger. My darling, my dear, my life. A vision of pure beauty. You hold me like heaven's arms. Whisper the way through your front door, keeping me safe from harm. Safe from harm. My darling, my dear, my angel.
That, by the way, is a release by Keb Mo, a youngish, which is to say middle-aged blues singer, and Taj Mahal. And they've actually been releasing singles together all year. I mean, there must be an album that they're going to put out at some point. But it was quite cheery to hear them together. All right, so first of all, let's ask her, tell me anything. Let me give you the number. It's 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. And yes, you can call in, and we would love to talk to you about any particular topic. Doesn't have to be about something that's burning up the news, although it could be. Could be something esoteric. Could be something that's touching your own life. And I was sort of saying, so I should tell you this thing, which is that we live stream the show on YouTube these days. And when we do, it means, for some reason or other, we start the live stream at 1, although the show doesn't go in the air till 1:06. And so I have like this 6 minutes where I'm not really working, but I'm not really not working either. And so today I just started babbling into the mic just in case there was anybody watching and feeling bored and excluded or whatever. The idea came to me, and I'll throw it out right now. Once again, it's called Ask or Tell Me Anything. So the whole idea is I shouldn't tell you what to call in about. But you could call in about the following thing. There's laughing, right? Laughing is, we know it's good for us. In fact, when I was a younger man, a writer-editor named Norman Cousins wrote a whole book about how laughter had helped him get over a very serious disease. It helped him recover. I see. Now we have a lot of calls in here. I just can't see them on my actual screen, but I can see them in notes here. So, anyway, so I can't remember what the Norman Cousins book was called, but it worried me because although I think I have a fairly delightful sense of humor, I don't really laugh all that much, like laugh really hard. And I notice it. And of course, as we get older and we laugh, we think, oh, I might die. I might die laughing. I mean, I know that's an expression, it's an idiom, but I might die laughing. And I had that feeling actually yesterday. I was watching A Day Late, as I often do, Saturday Night Live, and I've become very fond of the way they do Weekend Update. And so the cast member Mikey Day did this thing. He was a guy who just walked into a spider web. I can't really explain it, and if I did, it would sound really dumb. It would sound like I'm like 13 years old or something. But I was laughing so hard, I was thinking, I may have to go to the ER right now. This doesn't feel right. It's, that sort of feeling where you're enjoying laughing, but you also feel like you might die. All right, so we're going to have to improvise for the second week in a row. We're going to have to improvise a little bit on how we do this because, I don't have any ability to click a call on. So I'm just going to have somebody in the booth put these calls on the air. So I'll just start. We'll just go down. But I also don't know any of the topics. So we'll start with line 1, and let's talk to Chris from Walcott. Hi, Chris. Let me know when you're on the air. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Just fine. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I am calling from Wolcott today, and I am trying to get the word out to folks about an exhibit that we have at the end of the month from the weekend after Memorial Day May 29th through June 2nd, we're having the Traveling Vietnam Memorial Wall that will be visiting our town. And there will be a whole bunch of, there's an opening ceremony that Friday night at 7 p.m., a closing ceremony that Sunday after a reading of the names that starts between 4 and 6 to the reading of the names. And then Saturday, the one that's of personal meaning to me, there is a exhibit that is honoring veterans who have deceased from illnesses presumed to Agent Orange. There will be an exhibit adjacent to the Traveling Memorial Wall, and we just want to let people know there will be a candlelight vigil that night as well, so that they can come down and, they call it the wall that heals. If there are people who are looking for closure, such as, my father passed away from one of those illnesses in 2021, so it's personal for my family. We want to invite the public out for a meaningful experience.
That's a really beautiful thing, and I want to thank you for sharing it, too. And I think, one of the things we're going through right now is a little bit of even more than the usual crisis about how we treat our veterans and how we honor them, how we make sure they're getting the right kind of health care. So anything that we can do to raise consciousness is really good. Thank you so much for your call. We're going to go to now Mike from Woodbury. This will be interesting. All right. So Mike from Woodbury, you have the floor. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. So, this is going to sound esoteric, but it's actually not. I've been reading the selected works of Cicero, the famous, Roman statesman, orator, senator, etc. And I'm constantly coming across statements that are so relevant to our current situation. Like, for example, is it statesmanlike when one's country is under a tyranny to retire to some other place and remain inactive there, or ought one to brave any danger in order to liberate it? And he says, I argued that even a man who merely fails to prevent or repel wrongdoing is himself committing a positive wrong. And then this one is really nails our president, I think. It sometimes happens that one course looks right and the other advantageous. Yet this must always be a delusion, because right and advantage are by definition identical. Once let a man fail to understand that, and no species of fraudulence or crime will come amiss to him. If he argues, one course is certainly right, but the other is to my advantage, he will be tearing asunder two things which nature has joined together, and such misguided audacity leads to every sort of deception, crime, and sin. So,
yes, you're totally right. These are 100% on point. Can I ask you, are you reading... how are you encountering these selections?
It's the Penguin selected works.
Okay.
So it's got it's got his very lengthy attack on Mark Antony in the Senate, which of course then led to his being assassinated by.
I'm asking because I was scarred in ninth grade. I spent, I believe, the entire year translating his Catiline orations, which are, he's just unbearable in these. And he just, he's actually kind of Trumpy in the sense that he can't stop talking about the incredibly important role that he's playing. And he's just like, and so since then I have been obliged to rethink my feelings about Cicero.
Well, this is on duties, on how to live, a practical code of behavior is what this section is called, and it also makes me wish that the humanities were more important in college. I mean, now everybody wants business school and tech and TED Talk stuff, but I mean, I think if young people read a guy from over 2,000 years ago that said things that hit them and say, my God, this is like exactly what we're going through now, I think it would have a tremendously positive impact.
Yeah, I do wonder whether the pendulum will ever swing back. Maybe, when AI and other kinds of tech make all this STEM stuff kind of irrelevant because machines can do it better, people will rediscover the humanities, because I do think, to whatever degree you see, a bunch of 20-something punks running around on behalf of Doge and just, ripping the throat out of humanitarian programs and firing people with no warning and, destroying our national park system. You think these people, they somehow or other got through college without encountering anybody like Cicero, without having any, without being imbued with the humanities that allow you to think better and more sympathetically and empathetically about your fellow humans. So I'm 100% with you, Mike, and that's exactly the kind of esoteric call we're looking for. All right, so we're going to go to a few more calls here. I'm thinking this one doesn't have a name on it, but I have a funny feeling it's Lake Como Dave. Yes, there it is. Lake Como Dave, you have the floor.
Yes, the artist formerly known as Lake Como Dave. I could talk about stuff coming out of the White House the last few days that have been so upsetting, but you would hear the sound of my head exploding if I did that. And while that might be good TV, it's probably not very good radio. So I'll just sort of look ahead, something I was driving around doing errands, and this popped into my mind this morning, thinking about the Kennedy Center honors, which it's way in the future. This doesn't happen, as you know, till the end of the year. This is, for those who don't know it, it's a thing where at the Kennedy Center, which is now run by you-know-who, lifetime achievement awards for various disciplines, the arts, the humanities, and so forth, are given with tributes and so forth. But I just started thinking, what is that going to look like this year? I mean, it's usually done early December, I think, and then it's broadcast usually by CBS around the New Year's. But are we going to have Scott Baio to look forward to as the host? And, Kelsey Grammer and Mel Gibson coming out to tell us what the arts are really about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not unconnected to what Mike was talking about. I mean, that there's,
right.
Our country is right now being run by a whole bunch of people who didn't have a lot of exposure to the arts and the humanities and don't seem to have been shaped very much by them. And so, yes, I mean, my guess is that what you're talking about is something that will be unwatchable. And, it is kind of too bad, because whether you watched it or not, if you were even aware of it, and, every year it would be like, I don't know, it'd be like Leontine Price and Mike Nichols and, and all these people who kind of done these amazing things in different fields. And it would remind you of just how titanic the arts can be and what it can mean to really rise to the top there and make an indelible contribution. And I don't think the current Kennedy Center is going to be capable of doing anything like that, even if anybody was willing to go along with it. I mean, the likelihood would be that if they did pick, a few people who might have been suitable candidates, but I think the likelihood is also that they wouldn't attend unless, this whole idea of hyper-politicizing the Kennedy Center is let go of, which I don't think is going to happen. So just another thing to be sad about. But, yeah, thanks. We have to talk about these things. We can't bury them. We can't bury our feelings. Here's Catherine. Catherine's calling in. Hi, you have the floor.
Hi, Colin. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine, Catherine.
Great, because my voice, again, is not good. But I did want to just mention the quote, unquote, refugees from South Africa.
Yeah.
Because my mother's mother, we were born in England, her mother moved to South Africa, and I think it must have been before I was born, which was 1942. So I was just sitting here looking up the whole history of apartheid, and it just gets my knickers in a twist that white South Africans are given refugee status by this administration and a free ride over here.
Yeah. I mean, we should also say this whole thing is a total manufactured idea. I mean, it doesn't correspond to reality very well. I was listening to a South African guy talking on some public radio show, and he said, first of all, the only way that the only reason that Donald Trump could find South Africa on a map is the name of the country. But beyond that, this is not a country that is run exclusively by black South Africans. I mean, if you look at the cabinet, you look at, there are plenty of South African whites in that. There are even members of representatives of parties that are kind of, I don't know, alt-right isn't the right idea, but I mean, that whole idea that they have something to flee from is just insane. They are not oppressed. So, yeah, I just, a lot of this is distraction, I think, and maybe some of it is the weird influence of Elon Musk or something, but so many of these things, whether it's this or the jet from Qatar or whatever, it just feels like half the time the stuff that we're really getting outraged by are just things to distract us while he does something else. But I hear you, Catherine. It's just insane. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I didn't realize you were going to say more. All right. So we're going to take a little break right now. We're going to come back. It's Ask or Tell Me Anything. It's 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR.
Where your life's in a rut now, it'll pick you back up when the road gets rough. It's gonna do what it does.
Support for Connecticut Public Radio comes from Blythewald in Bristol, Rhode Island. With big, beautiful bamboo birds, 6 sculptures in the gardens, 15 to 20 feet tall, by artist duo The Mythmakers. More at blythewald.org.
Is John Fetterman okay? The senator from Pennsylvania had a stroke, you probably heard about that, and he continues to serve in the United States Senate, as you know, but new reporting from New York Magazine suggests he may be unfit for the job. We're going to explore on the next Today Explained.
This afternoon at 3:30. Support for Connecticut Public Radio comes from People's Bank, where a local team of cash management professionals is there to provide solutions for businesses large and small. Learn more at bankatpeoples.com/pbbusiness.
I'm John Henry Smith, host of All Things Considered on Connecticut Public. Every afternoon, we bring you the news with context, clarity, and heart. That kind of journalism does not just happen, it's built on trust, steadfast journalism, and on public support. Right now, federal funding for public media is under threat. You can help protect this essential service. Visit ctpublic.org/protect, because trusted news needs your voice.
There goes that girl, her hair all up in curls. Second prize prom queen, and that little boy always making noise. Ever so angry, my skin is crawling. I want to shout. My mouth is yawning. Your stories bore me out. Isn't it all so perfect? Some days we're made for...
By the way, every week we have a different methodology for picking out the music for the Monday Ask or Tell Me Anything show. Today it's simply newly released things. Although at the end of this segment, you're going to hear a newly released cover of a song that I would have said I never needed to hear again, particularly after watching Groundhog Day. But even, I mean, in fact, the whole point of that joke in Groundhog Day is that nobody wants to hear that song again. And yet Bill Murray's character is forced to hear it over and over and over again. But when you hear it, you'll hear proof of something that I've come to see, which is almost any song, even a song that is tiresome, or worse, can be covered in a way that's very aesthetically pleasing and successful. I mean, there really is. I think there almost isn't any such thing. I mean, a few weeks ago or months ago, we played Nicole Zaritis' version of a Brand New Key. The Melanie song. I've got a brand new pair of roller skates. You've got a brand new key. And it's really good. And that is a song that I would have said I'd never want to hear again. And so one thing that I've had to reckon with is there's no such thing as a song you never want to hear again. You might not want to hear that particular version of that song, but somebody right now is planning to do a version of the same song that you will like. All right, here we go. And we are going to go to Alex. Alex, you have the floor right now.
Hi, Colin. I like the Colin shows, but I was disappointed by the extent to which he gave RFK Jr. the benefit of the doubt. For months, he has been an even worse HHS secretary than I expected. I'm not an optimist. He's a eugenicist with his hatred of autistic people like myself, and his proposal of an autism database is in the same spirit of his previous proposal of the autism registry.
Yeah, and by the way, can I just pause and defend myself for a second?
Yeah.
I don't think that I've given RFK the benefit of the doubt. I regard him as potentially the most dangerous member of the Trump cabinet. I think what he's doing right now to undermine confidence in basic kinds of public health strategies and vaccines, I've written extensively. In fact, within the last 2 hours, I've gotten an email from somebody who was mad at me for something negative I'd said about RFK Jr. The one thing that I have said is that there are certain small areas where, and I think some of the food stuff might be one of those areas. Also, some of his pre-election critiques on how different kinds of doctors, providers, how the rates at which they're reimbursed. What the United States does, for example, is it tends to reimburse, the Medicare reimbursements, which kind of set the pace for other kinds of insurance reimbursements, reimburse specialists at a higher rate than primary care physicians. Primary care physicians are kind of the starving stepchildren of that system, and that's wrong, and it creates fewer primary care physicians. I mean, I believe in giving the devil his due. When he does some things that I think are meaningful, I try to give him credit because I don't want to be the person who's so doctrinaire about this I can't see any good. But I think RFK Jr. is an incredibly dangerous man, and I'm really, really worried about the health of this country. Anyway, now you may continue.
Okay, so that is good to hear. But now I know that in Illinois, J.B. Pritzker is not going to be complying with the proposal for a database, and so I was wondering how else do you think we should respond here in Connecticut?
Yeah, I that's an interesting question, and I don't know the answer to this. And part of the problem is that neither RFK Jr. nor Jay Bhattacharya has been entirely forthcoming about how this is going to work. And I think Bhattacharya, who I also, by the way, dislike, he actually blocked me on social media years ago, but I think he or maybe somebody else has said, all we're doing is combining a bunch of data sets that already exist within HHS. But I mean, I think the first thing that probably needs to happen through our representatives. Not that they don't have enough things to worry about and complain about, but we need to know, what is this database? How is it really being assembled? Because as usual, they've told 2 or 3 different stories. As you referenced, it went from being a registry to a database. I just insisting that they explain really what they're doing is where it starts, because you can't have a conversation until you know that. Oh, I was just wondering if you had any other thoughts.
Yeah, I just hope that Ned Lamont, he responds in the same way that Pritzker did, because I think the states might be our last line of defense against this government that is out of control.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I mean, I've been saying that in different ways, but I mean, as much anxiety as many of us feel on a daily basis, we're fortunate to live in Connecticut, which is a reasonably well-run state, and as much of the insanity that can be kept away from us, will be kept away from us, I think. But I mean, there's going to be a lot. And depending what happens over the next few weeks in between now and the 1st of July, what happens with Medicaid is going to be probably the biggest, scariest challenge. But if you live in a state like Connecticut, you kind of know that although the money isn't really here to keep all of Medicaid going indefinitely, probably whatever can be done to make this a less dire situation for poor people who can't afford health insurance will be done. At least I hope I hope I'm right in saying that. Anyway, thanks for your call. Really appreciate it. And let's go to Kelly in beautiful Deep River. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
Just fine.
Okay. Well, I've been frustrated for quite a long time with the Democratic Party, and it's just getting increasingly frustrating that they're always on the defense. And actually, in reality, both parties are nuts, right? No, the moderates get left behind. I used to tell my children all the time that, healthy debate, healthy democracy is to have compromise. And that all went out the window, more than 8 years ago or so. And both sides act like they've got the whole majority of the country. It's just, and what are we going to do about the Democratic Party? How are we going to stop these guys from making more mistakes?
Well, I mean, I first of all, I do think there, once again, is some reason for hope. I first of all think the process that needs to happen is slowly happening. If you look at how, if you heard Slotkin from Michigan on the New Yorker Radio Hour this weekend,
I did.
Yeah, she's an example of somebody.
Amazing.
She gets it. She understands what should be the marquee issues and what are the more boutique issues. And I think you'll see that in some of the more moderate governors of these. Anybody like Slotkin who's had to function in a district that isn't necessarily sympathetic to her, she's a great example. But people like Beshear in Kentucky, where once again, you have a state that's not a layup for a Democrat, and if you can repeatedly get elected governor there, that's a good sign. So I think so. And even you look at somebody like Hakeem Jeffries, I think he's changed his tone substantially too, and he's increasingly thinking about whether the Democrats are doing things that create kind of headline or political ad opportunities for the opposition, and what they should be doing instead. And it is, I think it's you're suggesting, these kind of kitchen table lunch pail issues should be the most important message. I keep going back to something I heard Jake Auchincloss, who's a congressman from Massachusetts, say to Ezra Klein, which is housing, healthcare, and taxes. If you are paying more than 50% of your income for those three things, there's a problem. There's a structural problem right there. Housing is too scarce and too expensive. Healthcare, our healthcare system is a mess. It has been for a long time. It's prohibitively expensive. It doesn't give good results. So if you look at those things and you say to somebody, if you say to voters, okay, if you're paying more than 50% of your income for those three things, we need to have a conversation. We need to figure out why that is. And here's what I think I can do to help you. So I think they're starting to get it. They understand that they lost a presidential election that they could have won, and that it was a closer election than Trump has made it out to be, but that the message was wrong, and maybe the messenger was wrong too. I don't think that they'll repeat that mistake. But we'll find out. We'll learn a lot more next year. We'll see how those midterms go.
But having said that, in that Slotkin, she said straight out, the only people that are going to speak up are not the ones that are going to be running this time around. Number one,
mm-hmm.
And number two, the far left, Bernie Sanders, he's on a road show, actually speaking out against her.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Democrats shoot themselves in the foot when they act like all the time we're just going to give. And then the right side, we're going to just, make sure that we don't take anything. It's crazy that the left and the far left and the far right are running this country, and all the people in the middle that would just like everyone to be a little bit more reasonable are just getting left behind.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, the Democrats are always going to be like that, and they always have been like that. I mean, Will Rogers famously said, "I belong to no organized political party. I'm a registered Democrat." And they're always at each other, barking at each other from opposite sides. In general, when you look at how the kind of success that they've enjoyed and when they've enjoyed it, Bill Clinton ran kind of as a DLC type moderate Democrat there, or neoliberal or whatever you want to call it. I wasn't ultimately crazy about everything that he did, but he had a message that could reach people that the Democrats were not otherwise reaching. I would say the same thing about Obama too. For all the screaming over on the right about how Obama was a Marxist and all this stuff, he was a moderate pro-business Democrat. And that both helped him and hurt him. But I mean, it helped him electorally. It sometimes, I think, impaired his judgment about certain issues. But so you need an element of Bernieism. You need the kind of message that Bernie is bringing, but you also need the other message, and you need the message. I think Bernie's point of view and Slotkin's point of view are not as irreconcilable as either one of them would make them out to be. If you strip away the style, they're kind of talking about the same thing, which is how to make this a reasonable place for the average person to live, how to make government really serve most of its people, as opposed to serving moneyed interests who are looking for even bigger tax cuts. So I don't know. I'm worried in the way that you are, but I refuse to be completely pessimistic about this. And the other thing I would say just about what Slotkin said, look, anybody who's running against an incumbent Republican is going to be doing a lot of talking. Whoever Tom Tillis's opponent is in North Carolina, they're going to be talking this talk. And the Republican Party is going to be in the position of defending a lot of stuff that, Tom Tillis type legislators were never in favor of to begin. You see some of the shifts. Josh Hawley, was it yesterday? It was yesterday. Josh Hawley had an op-ed in the New York Times. It sounded like Bernie wrote it. It was just about, how we can't possibly cut Medicaid. Now, there's some structural reasons why Hawley might be a little bit more protective of Medicaid, or feel as though politically he has to be more protective of Medicaid than maybe the average conservative Republican senator. But still, read that piece and think about who wrote it, and you'll realize that the Republicans are starting to realize that they could be having ankle weights tied to them instead of a hot air balloon, if that's not a tortured analogy, which it probably is. All right, let's keep going. Here is Todd. Todd is in Suffield. Hi, Todd.
Hi there, Colin. Yeah, just calling about Trump's fondness for changing the names of everything. Of course, the Gulf of America and Mount McKinley and what have you. The latest one, did you hear that he wants to change the name of the San Andreas Fault to Joe Biden's fault?
That's not bad. That's not a bad one. I would, I give that a, like somewhere in the B range, B plus maybe. Not bad. On a more serious note, I was reading this one. I can't remember where I read this, but it was over the last few days. A scholar of that part of the world who said it's actually a pretty good name, the Gulf of the Americas, if you want to name the power that has exploited that particular body of water, has drilled it and fracked it and fished it to the point of near extinction. You can't even believe there's any life left in it. Yeah, maybe it does make sense to call it the Gulf of America. All right, let's go. By the way, we're doing Ask or Tell Me Anything. And the number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. Most of our equipment seems to be working reasonably well at this point, so you can call up with confidence that your call will be received by the amazing Meg Fitz, and we will get you on the air. Just the way that we are about to get Cheryl from Meriden. Is that where she is? Yeah, she's from Meriden on the air. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello, Colin. When you first started your show today, you mentioned about laughing, which struck a memory for me because we've been listening to you since you were on TIC. And you used to have a woman that was a frequent caller with a deep, husky laugh. And she would call you all the time. And your favorite thing was to get her laughing. And that cheered everybody up, just not you. Do you remember her?
Well, it depends who you're talking about. There was a woman named Lillian the Puppet Lady. I wouldn't call her laugh, deep and husky. She had this odd laugh, which instead of laughing, she would go, ha, 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 ha.
Oh, no, no.
I loved her laugh, but I'm sure there was somebody else. Look, I was there 16 years. It was like a Turkish prison. I just have lost track of time there.
Well, we were glad you were there. And the other thing is, last night I watched 60 Minutes, and they started with a piece on fraud in our government. But after the piece was over, I felt there was something odd or off about the tone of that piece. And I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't see it. If anybody else saw it and they want to call up about it, I'd love to hear some more thoughts. Obviously, they're in the crosshairs right now. And last week, Scott Pelley, kind of spoke from his heart about what was happening there and how the editorial mission was being compromised by ownership and by Paramount. And so, I wouldn't be surprised. The longtime, much revered executive producer, whose name escapes me right now, but kind of quit in protest. Here we have this. It's really kind of interesting because, if you've lived with 60 Minutes for as long as perhaps you and I have, it was this just indelible brand. It was this brand that, for a long time, it was the highest rated, non-sports broadcast TV program in America. I don't know if it still is, but, it was this thing you almost couldn't screw up. And here they've gone and screwed it up. So, I'll be happy to try to check this out when I get a chance. Right now, we're going to almost go to a break. What do you want to say? Our number, 888-720-9677. That's 888-7, it'd be good if I stayed on mic. 888-720-9677. 888-720-WNPR. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come right back.
I got flowers in the spring. I got you to wear my ring, and when I'm sad, you're a clown, and if I'm scared, you're always around. I got you to talk with me. I got you to kiss goodnight. I got you to hold me tight. I got you and I won't let go. I got you to love me so. I got you, babe.
I'm Jane Clayson. New research points to the chilling risks that AI companions can pose to kids and teens. Researchers found it took very little prompting for an AI bot to offer harmful and dangerous advice to young people. How to protect children, next time on Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon at 2.
Why wait for the next episode of your favorite PBS show? With CPTV Passport, you don't have to. Stream full seasons of hits, such as All Creatures Great and Small, Miss Scarlet, Funny Woman, Vienna Blood, and more before episodes premiere on television. Be the first to know what happens next, only with CPTV Passport. Don't miss out. Visit ctpublic.org/passport to donate and start streaming today.
As President Trump exerts pressure to try to end the war in Ukraine, Poland is doing all it can to prevent another Russian invasion. The country is building up defenses along its border with Russia and has begun military training.
We have developed a strategy to counter any kind of mass land grab or mass land invasion or incursion that would occur.
I'm Elsa Chang, a look into Poland's preparations on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Listen this afternoon at 4. Support comes from the Connecticut Humane Society.
مليت من كتر ما أنا شايفة
And that was the producer's choice today, the maestro's choice. Dylan Reyes, our technical producer. Talk about somebody who's a tough laugh. In fact, if you want to see what Dylan Reyes looks like, if you could find the op-ed by in the Hartford Courant by our CEO, Mark Contreras, you have to find the online version. There's actually a picture of Dylan Reyes that goes with this in his usual glowering pose. I think he's laughing inside. On the inside, I think he's definitely laughing. But and well, I also want to thank everybody else who worked on today's show. Screening calls today, we have the wonderful Meg Fitz. That's Meg Fitzgerald, my favorite leprechaun. The producer of the show is Jonathan McPants. And our number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. We have various updates here. First of all, Bill Owens is the name of the 60 Minutes producer that I couldn't think of. Thank you for that. Also, my producer from WTIC, or for many, many, many of my WTIC years, Bobby Sherwood, who streams the show, he can't remember who that person, the laughing person, either, which makes me think it must have been there was an early version of my WTI show that ran from 10 to noon, and I think maybe the person who was being referenced there might have maybe been a caller to that earlier show. And then there's also a discussion. So we're streaming on YouTube, and one interesting thing about live streaming on YouTube is occasionally people do make comments, and somebody is saying that, okay, the idea that you, Colin, do not laugh a lot is, well, laughable. We all have a distinct manner of speech, and yours is delivery through stifled and strangled laughter constantly. Your laughing, lighthearted delivery of virtually every topic is why I listen every day. I think that's kind of true. I think I probably already do. That's me. That's how I talk. But I do that because I kind of think everything is funny. I mean, I really do. I think almost everything is funny, even things that other people wouldn't think would be funny. But that's different from really getting a laugh out of me, like a really big, hard laugh. And when I laugh hard, I really laughed that hard at this Mikey Day thing on Saturday Night Live. So much so that I really was worried about my own respiration. And I think I'm a tougher laugh that way. And I'm noticing that McPants feels the same way. All right. So I think we've updated all the topics that were dealt with perhaps insufficiently. We can go on. I can now go on to dealing insufficiently with other topics. And I feel empowered to do that. Hold on here. Okay. So here's Robin in Collinsville, who also watched the 60 Minutes piece. And we've also got Patricia, who also watched the 60 Minutes piece. All right. So let's... I'm going to be a very ineffective host here because I didn't see the 60 Minutes piece, but you guys are going to help out. Robin, get us going here.
Hey, Colin, thanks for taking my call. You know, I was very glad that listener mentioned the 60 Minutes piece last night because I tuned in specifically to watch that piece and see how they did. And I thought maybe I was the only one who saw that. I thought my resistance brain fog took over and I was just in a tunnel, but no, she was right. It wasn't the typical hard-hitting, target-rich, topical, Lollapalooza that 60 Minutes jumps all over. It was measured. It was kind of managed. And even, the sources, which were very good, I mean, it looks like they really stretched to find someone who was very hesitant to be critical of the Doge effort. And that was just one thing. I don't even remember them mentioning the firing of all the inspectors general. I could have stepped out for a minute, but it just wasn't as beefy and as revelatory as their usual, critical pieces.
Yeah, that does. I do want to say, it's interesting you mentioned the inspectors general, because right now, with all the stuff that's going on, whether it's Trump's use of crypto to create essentially a legalized system of bribery, or this insane thing with Qatar giving him a new Air Force One that he or his foundation gets to keep at the end of his time in office. Yeah. This is the kind of thing that an internal inspection should probably look at. I mean, that, for example, sounds like an emolument, which the Constitution is, pretty... it's a pervasive word in the Constitution.
Did they purge that from the vocabulary along with the Gulf of Mexico?
Well, very possibly.
Is that out of the lexicon now?
But you're right. One of the first things the Trump administration did was get rid of the watchdogs. Well, guess why? Because they didn't want watchdogs. They want to be able to do stuff like that. And
you would think a piece like that last night on 60 Minutes would have at least tipped a hat to the fact that this is still a problem.
So, first of all, I like the way you talk. You should be a radio show host.
Aren't you nice? Thank you.
But since you're
listen to you, that's how I get trained.
Since you're in Collinsville, so I'm this today. I discovered there's a book. This is a horrible thing to bring up, but there's a book coming out about axes, and I think it's sort of, in particular, about axes being used in murders and stuff, like sort of Lizzie Borden kind of stuff. But I'm not really sure. But I was thinking we should do a whole show.
The home of the axe,
that's what I'm thinking. You're in Collinsville, so. But I don't know. Does Collinsville still feel like axe country, or is that pretty atavistic at this point?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to talk to the Board of Selectmen that are deciding on all kinds of budget issues, and then we'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure they use the axe that way. All right. Well, listen, thanks for calling in, Robin. You're a great call. Okay, we'll do one more with Patricia. Now I really have to go watch this episode. Now I want to see how deeply compromised CBS has become. But here's Patricia in Bethany. Hi.
Hi. First of all, I have to say we're soulmates because I suffered through the Catalonian orations just as deeply as you did, and I never took another look at Cicero after that. But what I had to say about the 60 Minutes piece is I took a totally different message from it. It was a piece about defrauding the government by foreign actors, mostly criminal cyber gangs in other countries. It wasn't about waste, fraud, and abuse committed by American bureaucrats, and that's the message that we really keep getting from Trump, is that the people in government are defrauding us. But this was really something quite different, and it was quite shocking, and I thought it was very revealing.
Okay, I have to watch it. I will make we'll do one of our booth reviews next Monday, and I will make my pronouncement on it. But thank you very much for your call. I really appreciate it. All right, our number, 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNBR. You know, nobody the whole show has called up to tell me something that they've encountered recently that made them laugh really, really hard. I'm not pouting about that, all right? Because I better not pout. But we're going to talk to Levi from West Hartford right now. Hi.
Hi. I was calling because I've been hearing so many things about people who are lamenting the Trump years. Not to say I'm one of them, but I also kind of lamented the Biden years. And I feel like those of us who have no political affiliation, no real allegiance, we don't sort of get the high that some people felt when Obama came to office or that other people felt when Trump came to office. But we also don't have this sort of sense of hopelessness that seems to pervade when the other side wins. And I'd like to make a suggestion that people might do well to reconsider whether they should have a political allegiance. I think people treat it kind of like cheering for the home team. Makes them feel good when they win, and maybe there's not even any particular reason why they support them. It's just that that's what the family's always done, and we should continue doing it. But
I don't know. My parents were Goldwater Republicans, so I apparently wasn't very well trained. I do want to say this. Look, I mean, I get what you're saying, and you're not entirely wrong. And I think healthy skepticism is a pretty good frame of mind to go into any regime change, any kind of political conversation. I think somebody who does that really well, actually, although he's certainly a card-carrying, dyed-in-the-wool liberal, but I think Ezra Klein is really good at having healthy skepticism and also being willing to hear out certain kinds of conservatives. And I also think if you don't have friends from the opposite party, you're missing out on something. I have Republican friends, and I cherish them, and I'm interested in what they have to say. Now, I think this is the wrong time to have that conversation because what I think is happening right now has nothing to do with political parties, and it has everything to do with the cult of personality and with a guy who's trying to amass as much personal control right now as he possibly can and line his pockets and the pockets of his family and damage institutions so much that they can't resist him. This, to me, is not a Republican versus Democrat thing. I'm a little shocked at how few Republicans have risen up on their hind legs, but you're seeing it more and more. More and more they're realizing this is not something they want to be associated with. And when you have something as basic is the idea of an independent judiciary. One of the defining qualities of this country is the idea of the judiciary being a third branch with an equal status and an independence and an ability to check the behavior of other branches. When you have a chief executive going after that, to me, that's not a Republican or a Democratic thing. That's autocracy. It is an attempt to. I don't blame anybody who's anxious right now. I mean, let me just say something. One of the things I've been reading lately is the novel Fatherland, which is written by Robert Harris, who also wrote the novel Conclave. You know, and the premise of Fatherland is that Germany won, and it's 1962 or something, or 1964, and they're just telling you. Harris, this is written years ago, but his description of what Germany would be like under those circumstances, the way in which you can't question certain things, the way in which there's punishment for what amount to thought crimes, the way in which one leader is elevated to this godlike status. It's everything that is being attempted right now. And so, Levi, one thing that I wish, I'm glad you called today. I'm not reaming you out or anything like that. I wish more conservatives and people like you who have healthy skepticism about both sides.
Alexa, play WNPR.
We just lost Alexa. We just had Alexa or something. But I'm glad Levi called. And I wish more conservative people would call on Ask or Tell Me Anything. I realize, we have a reputation in public radio for maybe not having that many conservative listeners. I don't think that's entirely right. I wish more people would call in because I'd like to keep my own thinking sharp. I don't want to just talk to people who are as freaked out or bothered or worried as I am. But I do think these are special circumstances. And I look forward to the day when the Republicans that I grew up with, the Republicans that I grew up covering as a young journalist, come back and act like their old selves, because that'll be a very, very good day for America. Thanks for listening.